Hey guys, it's Linux Benchmarks here, and in today's video, I want to talk about why do I use Fedora as my main Linux distribution, as as using it for mostly everything in my daily life when it comes to, playing games, when it comes to like editing, making thumbnails, and just not even just about why I use it, but also the good and bad things about Fedora. Before we start this video, if you guys want to, please give a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to. We have hit 1,000 subs, which I really do appreciate that. It's pretty crazy how I started this YouTube channel around a year ago, and I've been able to grow it and obviously learn about Linux as an operating system and being able to use it as my main desktop for playing things like games and such. But yeah, I really do appreciate it for the 1,000 subscribers. Now, if you don't know what Fedora is, if you've never heard of it, Fedora is basically a bleeding edge type of distro that is developed by, well, not really developed, but is owned by Red Hat. If you don't know what Red Hat is, they're a big corporation that manage different types of things in the Linux space, but they do a lot more of the business side of things. So there is a whole separate team that works on Fedora, but that's basically the gist of it. Fedora is just a bleeding edge distro that provides basically not a rolling based distro like Arch, but it's very similar, that it gets kind of the same of updates, but it takes a bit longer to get those certain of updates for things like a desktop environment, or things like specific packages for updates. So we'll be going into the good things about Fedora and the bad things about Fedora. So one of the first thing I would say that is good about using Fedora is the schedule of updates. So what I said before, it's a bleeding edge distro, so you get certain types of updates on a certain type of like schedule almost, but basically the developers behind Fedora, they test all the packages before they come out so that you don't get anything broken necessarily, because when you install a distro like Arch that's rolling, or maybe if you install like Debian unstable or testing, packages can break. Even though it's very rare for a package to break necessarily, it does happen maybe every couple of months or every year. I know a lot of people on Reddit say that that doesn't happen on their Arch system, and that's awesome. And a lot of people, the majority of Linux users, do use Arch and they have no issues with it, and I've used Arch and I've had no issues with it as well. But using a distro like Fedora gives me a bit of security and safeness that my system won't break one time when I go to restart my computer after doing a certain amount of updates. But with things like that, you do get the newest packages. So when it comes to a desktop environment, like I'm running KDE Plasma, I would get the newest KDE Plasma updates. So when I don't know, 5.27.9 came out, it took a couple of weeks for it to come out to Fedora, while on Arch systems it probably only took maybe a couple of days for it to be pulled in so people could start using it. But you do get also the latest kernel updates. You also get the latest Mesa Point releases. So if you're running an AMD card, you get the latest patches with RDV when it comes to gaming and such. But that's what I like about Fedora, is its security and safeness, that something won't break on my system. Fedora also likes to use the latest technologies. So a while back when Fedora was updating its 6-month release schedule, they like to do things like Pipewire and Wayland. So when Pipewire came out, they basically hopped on it almost straight away, while other distros were still using Pulse Audio, and we still use Pulse Audio, but it just goes through Pipewire now, I'm pretty sure. So it's but yeah, they like to try and use the latest technologies, but it's not like they try to force you by any means. I mean, with the Pipewire one, they did force you, but with Wayland, Wayland isn't used as default just yet. I mean, I'm pretty sure when you first install Fedora, it does use Wayland by default, but you can easily switch off it and use X11. But next year when Fedora, I don't know, 40 or 41 comes out, they're going to use Wayland by default and remove remove X11. So that's going to be very interesting to see if, you know, like certain applications start breaking, because I know there's a couple of applications that still run off X-Wayland, and those apps need to be updated, like Steam and Discord. They're two that I can think of. Also like OBS Studio, the browser docs in OBS don't work in Wayland, and that needs to be fixed, because without that, you basically, as like a streamer, you can't dock like chat boxes and stuff like that. So, but back to my main point, Fedora likes to use like the latest technologies when it comes to, you know, updates and stuff like that. Also, you know, with Fedora, they like to have a wide range of desktop environments. Like for me, I use KDE Plasma, but if we scroll down here and we look at the list, they have tons of different spins. Now, obviously other distros, they have tons of different spins as well, basically almost like the exact same, maybe little differences, but you know, Fedora includes KDE Plasma. They also include GNOME as default. That's the one that they mainly use. You also have things like XFCE, you have Cinnamon, you have Mate plus Compers, you have i3 tiling, LXQT, LXDE, SOAS, I've never heard of that. You also have Phosh, so Fedora on mobile, like on mobile phone, which I have tried Phosh before. I have a Poco F1 and that's able to use the post-market OS. I think it's called a ROM, but I've used that and I've used Phosh and it does work quite well on my phone. Still needs a lot of development, but you know, it's kind of like a pet project, I would say. It's not there yet for like main use, but it's very cool. You also get Sway tiling VM and the Budgie desktop, so you get a wide variety of different spins for installing Fedora on your when you want to install Fedora. So you have plenty of choices, because I know there's a lot of people on my YouTube channel that like to use tiling window managers, and that's awesome. But yeah, if you don't want to use a tiling window manager, there's tons of desktop environments to choose from. But not only that about desktop environments, they also include not a wide variety, but they do have a lot of options when it comes to choosing what type of Fedora you want to install. So you also have you know, the one that I use, which is Fedora Workstation, and the majority of people would be using is Fedora Workstation. But there is 4 others here. We have Fedora Server. So yeah, if you want to run a server, you can definitely do that. If you want to run an IoT, so the IoT is like, you know, if you want to run like on a Raspberry Pi, or like whatever the hell this is, it seems like some NVIDIA technology maybe, I don't really know, but you can run this on like smaller devices, like lightweight devices. You also have Fedora Cloud, so if you want like a what's it called, a VM, it says here, a lightweight VM environment, you can definitely choose this one. You know, it's customizable, it's secure, you know, it's container based as well, and a wide variety of different companies like to use it, like AWS, Google Cloud. Those are some big names in the industry that do use that. You also have Fedora Core OS, which I do know a lot of people like to use this. I know a lot of advanced people who know Linux a lot have started using these types of distros where it's immutable, and basically you get these automatic updates, which is used, I think it's called like the atomic, what was it? It uses the type of like atomic updates, and it uses rollbacks via a like OS tree deployment. I don't really know what that means necessarily, but I'm guessing it's like, you know, you have a certain update and then it's able to update it for you without you really noticing anything, and it can roll back if there's problems. So that's really cool as well. I know a lot of people like to use Core OS, but for the majority of people and me, I like to use the workstation, and that's probably like the best, I would say, for desktop users. You know, one of the other good things about Fedora and why I use Fedora is that it has Flatpak pre-installed, as I use Flatpak as my main package manager for all of my applications, except Steam and Discord. Actually, no, I use Discord in Flatpak now, as Discord does maintain that Flatpak now. Like a week ago, they were able to get it verified on FlatHub. So the only application I use is Steam, but every other application I use, all these applications, Bottles, Jellyfin, GIMP, Kdenlive, Spotify, OBS. Obviously I use the system version of Firefox, but that's one of the good things about Fedora, is it includes the FlatHub repository by default, so you don't have to go and add it manually. You know, I know a lot of people who install Ubuntu as their main distro, and they have to deal with the Snap package manager, which isn't the greatest package manager for Linux. I mean, it does work. I do run Ubuntu 23.10 on my dad's computer, and I actually looked at the new Snap store that's available on Ubuntu, and that actually looks really good. But you know, using Snap Package Manager isn't that great. I do prefer Flatpak a lot more, as they're more like involved with the core of like Linux, I would say, and how Flatpaks are set up are a lot more that like I just understand it a lot more. Maybe that's because I haven't really looked into Snap packages and how they work. But yeah, that's one of the good things about Fedora, is it includes Flatpak by default, and not just that, it includes it as a system. So there's also how the repo gets installed and how the app's installed. There's a system one, and then there's a user one, and lots of distros like to use the user one, which there's particular applications in the FlatHub repository that don't work with the user one, and they only work with the system one because they need system permissions to like use certain things. So like a particular application is like GPU screen recorder. I use this for recording really high quality gameplay for like benchmarking games, and if you install this as user, it will tell you that you need to install it as a system, because of I'm guessing like it has to grab your monitor, and it needs your password for that to like grab the monitor, as it's, you know, it's running in a Flatpak, so it doesn't have permissions to do that. So you have to install it as system, and Fedora uses it as system, so that's really good. Now, what are the other good things about Fedora? And this is something that I don't really use that often. It's only when I don't find a particular package that's that I want, I will go here. This is kind of similar to the Arch repository that's called Fedora copr, and you know, this is basically where you grab particular applications that you want that are community made. So I know like Glorious Egg Roll, he's put packages on here for Nabora particularly, and you've been able to grab it if you're on Fedora. Also like Messigit, I actually had Messigit installed, and to get Messigit installed you have to go here to find a particular repository who's maintained by a particular person. I forgot his name. I think it's like Mitsu or something. He maintains the Messigit version that gets updated every couple of hours, and that's something I don't like about Messigit on here, is it gets rebuilt like every couple of hours, and sometimes that can be quite annoying, as I don't want to get updates constantly every couple of hours about Mesa when there's nothing like major in the Messigit update that it shows. But this is where you would grab all types of different applications. So if you want like, I don't know, OBS, you want like a particular version that's community maintained by someone who includes different like plugins or something, you go here to grab one. But that's one of the other strong suits about Fedora, is the copr repo. Now we're going to talk about the bad things about Fedora, and this isn't necessarily like bad things per se, they're more just cons. But one of the first things is that the Discover store, which if you don't know what the Discover store is, it's where you grab all your applications in Fedora basically as terms of like a GUI store. So of course you can just use the terminal, you go straight in, you can grab an application using the DNF or Flatpak command. But for the majority of people who are you know, let's say like noobs or new to Linux, they just go to the GUI, or like for me, I'll usually just go to the GUI store because I don't want to use the terminal unless it's a last resort. But one of the problems is that when you do updates, it sometimes takes up to 5 minutes to update your like search for updates, and this happens on GNOME and KDE Plasma. And I'm pretty sure that what the issue is that it's using package kit, which is a particular type of tool for grabbing updates, and I think it might be quite old when it comes to grabbing updates, and it has a couple of bugs maybe. That's what I was just reading online, is that package kit is used in Discover in Fedora, and that's why it can take a while for all these updates to come out. And this is gonna get fixed in DNF 5. So DNF is what you use in the terminal for grabbing applications. You would just do like sudo DNF install, I don't know, Discord or something like that. and then you could just easily install Discord. Of course, it can't find it because I don't have a repository that has the system version of Discord, but yeah, so they're trying to update DNF to DNF5 so that they can probably use it in Discover, but for right now, and someone else can comment down below if I'm wrong about this. That was just me searching online, that it's a package kit problem, and that's why it takes up to 5 minutes, because it literally, you could sit there and it will just sit there just on like refreshing, and it will just sit there for like 5 minutes, and then it will show you some updates. So that's one of the cons so far about Fedora, and that's not, I deal with it and it's mostly fine. I can just go through the terminal anyways if I want to quickly do it. Now, one of the other cons about Fedora is that when you reboot the PC, it can take, there's like a timer that's 1 minute long, where it will close processes. So if there's a particular application, let's say Steam, I know this happens a lot. If you have Steam open and you go for a restart, it will sit there for about a minute before it will force close Steam, because what it's doing basically is it's waiting for Steam to close, but Steam isn't going to close, so it's going to wait for a total of 1 minute. So it will just be sitting there with its Fedora icon loading, and then it will force close Steam, and then it will restart your computer or turn it off or whatever you're trying to do. But that's one other con, is that, you know, that's kind of like a minimal thing. It's not really that bad, I would say. I can deal with it for now, but hopefully they change that. But yeah, that's just one other con with Fedora. Now, one of the other big things I would say, and this is something that Fedora is kind of like out of control with this one. They can't really do anything about it, so that's why they removed this type of stuff, is the codecs. So they don't have all of the codecs pre-installed when it comes to like proprietary codecs, as it tries to be like an open source distro, so it's trying to use stuff that is free, but particularly like when you first install Fedora and you try to watch a stream on Twitch, for example, it won't work. And I've done this, I've said this in my tutorials for how to install Fedora, where you have to enable the H.264 codec so that you can actually use the Twitch website or Kick as well for playing H.264 streams. And then also, if you're using VLC and that's pre-installed as a system package, when you try to play certain videos sometimes on like AMD hardware, for example, there can be some quite glitchy video. So like, that's where you have to install basically all of the codecs, and there's all types of different codec, like GStreamer codecs that you can install to fix this, but that's just something that isn't pre-installed on Fedora. That's kind of a con. So like, if a new user installs Fedora and they try to play a video that they have stored on their computer and they don't know about this, and they see this glitchiness and they're like, oh, okay, this must be bad, and they go back to Windows, or they switch off Fedora and they go to a different distro, which that's completely fine, I guess. But yeah, like they just wouldn't know that, and that would just be kind of a bad thing, I would say. But I do have it in my videos, so if anyone like is new to Fedora and you want to install Fedora as a distro, I would definitely go watch that video so you can see like how to enable OpenH.264 and codecs for like VLC. And this also can be installed, this also can be fixed as well. So you can just grab the Flatpak version of VLC or Firefox, and that will include the proprietary video codecs or open source video codecs, whichever one it uses. And yeah, that would actually just fix it straight out of the gate. And I can also understand that, like, this is this is like copyright issues with like proprietary technology that Fedora / Red Hat can't really control, and they probably don't want to pay for it either. So that's why they like switched to the Open H.264 codec from Cisco and such like that. Now, one of the other cons about Fedora when you first install it is the installer. So the installer on Fedora is quite old, I would say, and I'm pretty sure it's based on GTK 3, I think. But even so, the UI is a bit confusing for new users, I would say. It's not up to the standard of other installers. It's definitely better than the Windows installer, but it's quite just, let's say, special in the terms of its UI and how it like shows things, and it can confuse a user a lot when installing Fedora, but this is changing. They are working on a web UI installer that is going to be developed by the Anaconda team, and this installer is way better. So this is not really, this is just a con for now. In the future, I think Fedora like 40 or 41 will use it. It was supposed to come in Fedora 39, but it got delayed. So my guess would be like 40 or 41 it's going to be introduced, and that will just, you know, make it a lot more easier for newcomers to install Fedora relatively easy. So in conclusion, I think Fedora is a great distribution. I've been using it for over a year now, mostly as my main, or I've been using Nobora as well, which is basically just a customized version of Fedora. So I have been using Fedora as my main distro basically for over a year now, and it has been a great distro, even though some people say that Fedora isn't a great distro. And you know, like, I completely agree with your statements if you don't like Fedora. I know that it's backed by a pretty notorious and kind of not sketchy, but kind of a villain company when it comes to the Linux ecosystem. Red Hat is a kind of a villain company, but they do a lot and they have a lot of money. So when it comes to helping Linux, Red Hat does help a lot. But I mean, at the same time, they help, but they don't help. They lock things away with their other distros that they have, like RHEL and all that stuff. But yeah, I've been using Fedora as my main distro, and it's awesome for gaming, editing, creating thumbnails and stuff like that, and just doing everything on it. And yeah, if you guys like this video, definitely give it a like I said before at the start of the intro of the video. Obviously, you can sub to the channel. We've been gaining subs pretty quickly this past week, to the point where we've hit 1,000 subscribers. So if you made it this far to the video, I want to thank you for watching this video for this long. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.